entire soundtrack basically. So EVE Online, what that is, it's a game that's been around for like more than 15 years, I'd say, and it's an MMO, so it's massively multiplayer online, a lot of PvP stuff going on, and it takes place in space. So you pilot a spaceship, you go out, you can fight, do missions, mine asteroids, do whatever you want. So it's like a MMORPG but with spaceships, and the soundtrack is just beautifully done, in my opinion. It's all ambient electronic music, which I'm a huge fan of, because you'll find out soon that I'm a huge electronic person. And it's just lots of reverb, lots of synths, lots of melodies and detuned notes and syncopated notes, like just all the synth stuff that I really love. And it just has that very 70s sort of 80s space feel that you get out of like the sci-fi genre. And it's just, I love the soundtrack. Some tracks aren't as good, but for the most part, super atmospheric and just really nice to listen to. And just sometimes I'll just listen to it every once in a while when I'm just doing something, like I'll be reading a book, or I'll just be like working away and I want to listen to it because it's just there and it's just cool. It just takes you to another place. It just fits that backdrop of being in a universe that's enormous, and there's just stars everywhere, planets everywhere. You go light speed to travel and all that stuff. It just encapsulates all the space travel stuff you would think of in a soundtrack.
Have you played it though?
Yes, I've played it.
So when did you play? I don't know much about the history of this game. So like when did EVE Online become a thing?
I think it was in like 2003, 2004, and I might have played it in 2005. And I played it for about 2 months, and it's just a huge time sink. It's just a game that wants you to keep subscribing. And that's why I didn't really care for it, but I love the music and the visuals. Everything just went together. It's just the gameplay was a grind.
Yeah, I just like I said, I don't know that much about it, but all I ever hear about that game is like all the weird stories that come out of it, like of all the players that are like super fucking dedicated to it, and then dump all these like hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars into it, and like how just like entire economies and empires get crumbled in that game, and a certain ship that was destroyed at a certain point in time is still there as like a placeholder in the game that you can go visit it from some epic war. And like people have found out where other players live that are on different factions, and they when they're going to stage a raid or something, they go and cut the power to this person's house so it fucks up their game. And I just heard all these crazy stories about that, so I've never played it. I've barely ever looked at it. So I was just curious what your experience with it was, and how sort of the gaming soundtrack side of it related to you personally.
Well, I didn't play it enough to really get into that, and I wouldn't have anyway, but I know and familiar with all the stuff you're talking about. There is crazy history with the nutcase gamers that love this game, like the hardcore fans, because it's mostly PvP driven, and there is like a really big economy in the game that kind of coincides with like real world money. And of course those two things, like the being aggressive and having real world money together, causes people to kind of go nuts. So there's really great stories of like huge faction wars and like literal like thousands of real dollars just being vaporized in a second when they're having this huge war. Or like people have infiltrated other clans and like stolen all that clan shit and taken it away to like their clan. Like just like crazy stuff has happened in that game.
Yeah, when you hear about this game, it sounds like the most epic fucking game ever made. And then you look at a video of someone playing it, and you're like, is Clippy about to pop up and give you some hints, some tips, tricks to
it is
how to
slow.
Play this fucking thing?
It is pretty slow because things happen in real time. Kind of. It just feels like you're really simulating it. Even though it's not a simulator, like flight simulator type game, it's just that's what it's just a grind. And you get these epic stories, but those stories took months. Like the one that I was talking about with like the espionage and being a spy and stealing stuff, I think that took like a year to pull off. And that's like a monthly fee to get to that point, and all that work to gain all those people's trust and all that stuff. Like that is like beyond next level shit for a video game. You know, like when I turn the game off, that's it.
that's kind of the experience like you always wanted like online video gaming to become, was this crazy shit where you get super invested in, like, you play a role, you play a character that's unique to your personality, or if you want to be a heel or some kind of person that's sabotaging something, like you're infiltrating another, like all the things you hear about that game, it sounds like the most fascinating game ever, and then you look at it and you're like, what is this fucking pile of shit?
No, it's funny that you have that perception, because that's true. I never really thought about that. It's just I've loved the soundtrack, I love the visuals of the game, the stories are great, but you're right, like the game itself is a huge time sink. But I think that's why it's persevered for like I don't know how many years it's been, like I said, like over 15, but it's persevered that long, where people love it to the point where they're like probably living in it and obsessed with it.
On a similar note, similar vein, while I never played EVE Online, I do feel compelled to give a shout out to Elite Dangerous. While we're on the subject of space and great soundtracks, so the cool thing about Elite Dangerous, it can be a little boring. It does start